So here I am again, and in the new year nonetheless. So, hello again everybody, 'tis I, the Meera Ghosty, and this is that totally long-awaited part 3 of the failed self-insert character archive video. And yes, there's still missing a part 1, but that is largely because that actually has to be a redo of an older video that does exist on this account. So, picking up where I left off in the last video, Adeline came into existence. Holly and Amber, who I got annoyed/bored with writing, had this epic, convoluted lore reason of being two parts of a fractured singular being, and they've restored the last missing piece enough they merge back into who they were totally always meant to be. This totally not random, but oddly reoccurring method was a delayed orchestration of their mother, who didn't want a broken child, I say this in quotation marks, don't take this the wrong way, saddled with half the soul of her not-so-existent sister. So she had those bits extracted from her young and boxed them up in a Pandora box sort of situation where a young lady opened it way too soon. They became two separate entities. A third entity got involved, which is Renee. And after a while of all of those three kind of gelling together long enough, they merged back into Adeline. Totally was planned from the very, very beginning. Yep. Going into this, from this point onward, and the character of Adeline is that every so often, like probably every few weeks to every few months, I would add/change something about her to make her into a character I was more proud of. So, at the very beginning, all that was there of her, the barest of bones, was that she was Lainey's twin. She came into existence late due to shenaniganery, as I just said. She was kind of sarcastic and sassy and very shy and reserved, very introverted, very me. She was basically just me, with the added benefit of she had special powers. On the list of powers, she could sort of kind of read people's minds. She could sort of kind of, pretty sure she was just straight up telekinetic, actually. And then also, she had like a twofold ability of premonition. On one half of it, she was just straight up psychic. She could see the future. On the other half of the premonition bit is she would just go straight up catatonic, and she would assume the life of a doppelganger and run around as her doppelganger. And I'm gonna be fair, her doppelganger was literally just me. I'm not joking. It literally was just double the self-insert in one story. It was weird. Now, outside of this, she kind of still got used intermittently in line with Lainey and these little short romps I had with my best friend, Malice in the Abyss, for the stupid comic we both thoroughly enjoyed, and every so often, I would enjoy something else, and that would influence Adeline. Case in point, a lot of things that started to influence Adeline relatively early on was my love of the Percy Jackson series and, by extension, the Kane Chronicles. So she started kind of minorly integrating into some Percy Jackson lore. So did her and Lainey's parentage in general. I kept changing who their parent was. Towards the beginning of this, their parent was still just Thanatos. She also started to be influenced in another vice that came up over an entire summer. Well, actually more like the ending of school year and then the entire summer, which is me getting obsessed with Homestuck. Let's just take a moment to truly absorb the Homestuck influence. She was influenced twofold by Homestuck. On one half of it, she was influenced by me making my own little, friendship circle game of Spurb, where I gave me and my friends a bunch of, aspects and whatnot. And on the other fold, she was influenced by a troll OC. That troll OC was a Pisces. I don't want to go any further into it than that. And because this is going into that whole summer where I was getting super deep into Homestuck, I was also getting super deep into a lot of things. I was absorbing a whole heck of a lot of media because I had internet access, like unrestricted, that whole summer. So that led to me getting way more into a bunch of different animes and mangas, I'll be fair. Also, I was watching a lot of Charmed. That summer, towards the end of it, I was binge watching all of Charmed. Ironically, never finished the whole series. Not the point. The point is, these influences started influencing her slowly, lightly altering her design, lightly informing her character and her abilities, and eventually it influenced her name. That's getting too far ahead. Let's reel it back a little bit. So, over that summer, her design started to be influenced by all these things that I was like getting super absorbed with. Her storyline remained relatively kind of the same until it didn't. This transitionary period was when I was starting to be more influenced by one of my favorite mangas, which is Pandora Hearts. And this is also when Lainey and Adeline's parent changed from Thanatos to Tartarus. And no, you did not hear me wrong. If you're familiar with Greek mythology, Tartarus is in fact the deepest part of the underworld, but also it is a primordial deity, kind of like an incarnation of the underworld itself. It's very much how Gaia and Nyx are also primordial deities. They aren't just a goddess of a concept, they are the thing itself. So, Adeline kind of became separated from Lainey instead by fractured soul nonsense into she couldn't exist with Lainey at the same time because half mortal children of a primordial deity is just too much power in one little body. That's why there were twins. Additionally, Adeline kind of siphoned out most of like the biggest powers that Lainey would have gained, and so her existence kind of remained a part of Tartarus and grew up separate from her. And you might be asking yourself, then how did she get out of that? How did she become a being outside of Tartarus? Well, you see, I'm pretty sure it started out as just Lainey did something specific that pulled her sister out and gave her form. However, later on, when I was in high school and I had just gotten to catch up to Gravity Falls, I watched those episodes with Bill Cipher, and my brain told me, that is the coolest thing you've ever seen. He should get involved in the story. So, in some prime time of 2015, Bill Cipher got involved in this story, and he is the reason why Adeline is no longer just a part of Tartarus and why she has a physical form. Now, somewhere within this slight time period of her becoming a Tartarus kid and before Bill Cipher gets introduced, a few more things that influenced her actually definitively changed her design from being a short brunette to being a long-haired brunette with braids to just being long white hair. This very much continued to be the influence of Pandora Hearts, but also some minor influence from a fairy tale I really enjoyed, which is Rose Red and Snow White, and I liked to kind of superimpose this story onto Lainey and Meera, and it's why Lainey's hair went from sort of reddish brown to actually red, and also why Adeline's hair turned white. Now, when Bill was introduced into the story, and he became the reason why Lainey got her sister out of Tartarus and got her own physical form, there was a bunch of things that started to really start going into the story. A lot of things were like world building into, because Adeline has never had a human body before, never experienced the mortal realm. She lacked like all form of pain tolerance. So the slightest of push would be extremely painful for her. Completely messed up pain receptors in her body and brain. Adding on to all of this nonsense was her powers completely changed. She wasn't entirely a psychic anymore, although nebulously she could see anywhere in the current time, which was through mirrors. And this is where we get into her name stopped being Adeline and it transitioned into Meera. Now, this name occurred somewhere in 2014 into 2015 because I was taking Latin and I happened to be perusing a Latin to English dictionary for funsies and for name inspiration, I do believe. And I stumbled across Meera in it, and it translated to like strange and miracle. And I became absolutely transfixed with this name. And it became my name. And by extension, I gave it to my self-insert because I knew no one was ever going to call me the name I preferred. So Adeline turned into Meera. Meera became this great powerhouse being that Bill Cipher was attached to. And instead of just that he helped Lainey get her out, now Bill's end of the deal, what he wanted out of it was he wants to use Meera as a sort of power source to make himself stronger. And so he kind of just hangs around her and drags her along the places he goes. And somewhere in this, really late into my senior year, Lainey and Adeline's parent changed once more. And it changed into the Boogeyman from The Grim Adventures of Billy and Mandy, because I had actually watched it by this point. So I had a bit more of a knowledge of the influence of this comic I was really into. And her being this attached entity to Tartarus no longer fit, but it could easily fit with the Nightmare Realm. And she still gets the same treatment of being an entity comprised of the like immense potential and power of the Nightmare Realm. This time, the reason why she is there and she wasn't raised alongside her sister is because Mandy, being a wonderful mother and wanting to make an absolutely powerful weapon for her to use in the future, exposed her twins to the Nightmare Realm to amplify what powers they would have gained from their father. And it didn't amplify one of them, and the other one kind of got swallowed up by it, so she kind of hid her mistake by sending away the surviving daughter to be trained into a perfect little child soldier. That failed horrifically. Lainey runs off later, comes back, a whole bunch of shenanigans. She gets Meera out of the Nightmare Realm, and Meera's now party to Bill Cipher, and this totally was an excuse for me to ship myself with Bill Cipher. That's totally not what happened. You can hear the sarcasm. Now this is where we hit the last bit of Meera's story. This is where she ended. There was quite a bit of stuff I did actually do. There was quite a bit of stories I did write, a lot of pictures I drew, a lot of fun little ideas I explored a bit. She had a child. That's how Amunet came into existence. Amunet is the child of myself, Insert, and Bill Cipher. And now, technically, Amunet no longer has that title. She's just Bill Cipher's kid and Mandy's kid. And the reason that happened is because Meera is my name. I've accepted that. I get called that now. My friends and the people who I introduce myself to are told to call me Meera. And yes, she was a self-insert. But it started to feel weird to write a character with my name. To like write a description of like, this is Meera doing this. And all I could sit there and think while doing that is, That's my name. This is so weird. I can't keep calling her that. Especially because that's my name. I'm referring to myself with this now. So, inside my head, when I started to think of her story, I had to, like, internally subtitle it Void Meera. And then that just became too much to think about, so I stopped. That's where this version of her stopped. And I still feel too awkward to bring it back. And that's why this all culminates down to being called the failed self-insert, because it's too awkward for her to have my name. So, she still exists, she still has importance. I just feel weird calling her Meera now. And that's it. That's where we end. This is my little persona. This is who I am comfortable giving the name Meera, because I'm just referring to myself at this point. And you know what? I'm fine with it that way.